Welcome to the webinar on end-of-year reporting. I'm Beth Elliott, your trainer today, and we're going to be going over some of the reports that you want to run at the end of the year in a couple of different modules, and that's going to include your attendance, discipline, grade reporting, fee tracking, and some NCLB, No Child Left Behind reports. So what I have here is I have the staff portal up, and I'm just going to go ahead and maximize that to make it a little easier to see. So I've logged into my staff portal, and a lot of the reports you run at the end of the year, you want to be in an all-student filter because you want both your active students and your inactives, those that left partway through the school year. So under attendance, and if we go over to the reports, you have some of the reports you can run just a straight student record listing, which will run the entire detail for the year. So if you go in there, you can set a starting and ending date, and it will run from the first day in your calendar to the current day, or the last day in your calendar. I'm going to do a student range so I don't have the entire student body, but I'll just run a couple of students, and then we'll also do a new page for each student. So you, as I said, you can set your student range, and you can go ahead and print. You can also do a new page when any of your biographical fields or anything else changes, like if you wanted to do it by grade level or something like that. But when I print, we're including any daily attendance notes that happen for the student and other details. So for each student, it's going to give you their name, ID, birth date, year of grad, and homeroom. The next area is the entry withdrawal records. So this is where the student came, potentially they left and or came back. You would see another line for the student that came back. And then you're going to see the daily detail for that student. So every time they were absent, tardy, dismissed, suspended, this will be in here. If they were tardy, you could have your entry withdrawal, your time in and out rather, or any canned comments. And then at the bottom for the student, it's going to give you totals for that student between your possible, present, and attendance. So the attendance percentage is the present divided by the possible, but it also will split out your excused and unexcused absences, give you your tardies and dismissals. Non-members is when the student was not a member of your school, and that happens when they didn't start the first day of school or left before the end of the school. Those would be considered non-member days. And based on the ending date, there is no consecutive absence or tardy. If I go to the next page, I can see your sister and see that she was only absent once versus all the time that her sister was out. But it gives you that you can see that sort of information. Any of the reports when you're in the staff portal, you can export to a PDF format. You can go into a text file of a comma separated, or you can go into an older version of Excel, which you can still open in the newer version. If you select one of those versions and click on Export, depending on your browser settings, depends on whether it's going to put it in a specific, say, download folder, or if it's going to ask you where to put it. You also have the option to go straight to the printer. So it just gives you an option to be able to see that report. You can do the same sort of thing for the class attendance student record listing, where it would show you every single class that the student didn't go to. But you might not run that as often. Under your student area, you can print a student biographical record listing if you'd like to see all of the data or all of the standard data for those students. Most of what we're doing, the other thing in here while I'm in the portals, if you are running a skills report card, you might want to go down at the bottom here and preview the report cards in a batch and run everybody at the end of the year. You can also come into grades, and in the reports here, you can run your standards report card if you're running those kind of ones. You might also want to run your graduation requirements. So with the graduation, let me finish attendance and then we'll come back and do some of this for the grading. So if I go into MMS generations, and again, I'm going to max this out to make it a little easier for you. You want to be in an all-student filter, and you can be running these reports in a multi-school mode. So you could have your K-12 where you're running everybody in the district. I'm going to leave it in the high school, and we'll probably be cutting down on some of the student ranges so that you can see them. So we're going to go into daily for the attendance, and we're going to look at the more attendance reports, and we're going to start with the statistical matrix report. What the statistical matrix report is going to do is for the date range that you specify, and potentially for the calendars if you have more than one, I've set mine up to look at all of them, is I'm going to do a student range. Let's just do the H's. And when I print, I'm bringing in all of my register codes, so I'm not limiting it by whether they're a charter school, whether they are, what grade they are, but I could do that. And I'm going to go ahead and print. So it will go through and by month split it out males and females with a total. And it's multiplying the number of students by the number of days. So in my August calendar, I only have 1 day. So it's showing me that I had 25 males, 27 females, and they were all present. So I had 100% attendance. When I come into attendance for September, I'm seeing that I had an average daily membership of 52 students, but an attendance of 51.04. So I had a few students that were absent, and it's going to show me that. And I also had a couple of different calendars that it's looked at. The numbers above, when you see the male-female count, are the number of students by the number of days, and that's why the numbers get up there. But for each of these months, it's going to show me how many sessions for the calendar, the total number of days in session. As I said, average daily attendance, average daily membership. Membership is who was a member during that month. And then the percent attendance. On the bottom of the page, you're going to see current enrollment and cumulative enrollment. The current enrollment is who is a member as of my ending date. The cumulative enrollment is who was a member any time during the date range. So at some point, I had a student who came in and or a student who left. And that's where the numbers are going to change. Okay? So it lets me see that information. It's showing these totals for every month. And then on the last page, it also is going to give me grand totals. And we can see here between April and May that my average daily membership went from 52 down to 51.38. So partway through that month, somebody left. And it lets me see that. Another report that's nice with this is you can go under daily, more reports, and run the attendance register report. What the register report does is for the different time frames that you put in, and there's 3 areas. There's a student detail, a current period, which could be, say, the current quarter or trimester, and then the year-to-date totals, which come the end of the year, they're all going to be the same totals. So here we have first day of school to last day of school, where the other ones are to the current date. You can look at this with 1 month per line, 4 or 5 weeks per line. And you can subtotal, so I could come in and say, oh, I want a subtotal every time the grade level changes. And I'm again going to do just my H students. And I'm going to go ahead and print. This is a landscape report, And the students for the attendance reports, they need to be active in attendance. So for each student, we're going to see a month at a time, which is actually up to 5 weeks. And you're going to see the short code that's in your attendance codes to show here when the student was absent. And then for each line, it gives you how many possible days, how many present, absent, and here it combines excused and unexcused absence, tardy dismissed, and non-members. And then the totals for the student. So you have the current and the year-to-date. So these are slightly different because my current ends today, where my year-to-date goes to the 15th, so it's another week. And that's why there's a 5-day difference on the possible. And then for if the student was a non-member on a particular day, what you would see would be ends to indicate that they left partway through the year. So starting in May, this student was a non-member and left throughout the end of the year. So that's where the ends are coming up. So you're going to get non-member days over here on the right. So it lets you see. And above that, you can see the student name, their entry, withdrawal, and or any other information. Some of them are just going to have the entry and not the withdrawal. So I can see on May 12th, the student left, and that's why in the middle of the month, middle of the week rather, it's showing that. So it's a nice quick way. Now this short view is only going to show one code. So if you had a student who came in tardy because they weren't feeling well, and then they later were dismissed, they went home, you're only going to see one of the codes here. But it would still total properly. So just to let you have that information. And then every time in my case, the grade level changes, I'm going to get totals for that grade level. So here are my 9th graders, and it gives me their totals with present possible and so on. And then as I continue, I get the next grade, so now I'm doing the 2018. And then on the last page, I will also get my grand totals and also, again, my current and cumulative totals. So it's going to give me that for each of the areas. But for a nice, quick, compressed listing, this is a great report to keep. And now I'm previewing to screen. If I close this, I could have changed my output option and said I wanted to save it to a PDF, which makes that a lot easier having an electronic copy. Okay. If you just want to see the entry withdrawal information under daily reports, you can go to the entry withdrawal reports. In here, you have 3 different options. The tally is going to let me see for the date range that I specify for each of my attendance codes, how many males, how many females, and what my total is. And that's going to include codes I don't use. But I can see, oh, here's my R4 students who came in. I have 2 males that applies to. I can scroll down, see what my withdrawals are, and see where those students left. So I have some students who left and or returned. So it just gives me some overall numbers to work with. I can do a list by code. So if I wanted to see just the students who withdrew, I could scroll down to my W1, because that happened to be one of the codes that I had where students withdrew. And I can go back and print, and this time it's going to give me who the student was and when they withdrew. So it gives me that information. You can also use this to do a dump. Now the dump is not that it's getting rid of the records, it's just going to say, give me everything. So when I print, for every student, it's going to give me the entry code, the entry date, withdrawal date. So down here I can see here Jason. Jason entered on the 31st of August. He left on September 25th, and he re-entered on October 28th. So he was gone for about a month. but it lets me see register codes. It lets me see what calendar they're in. And as I go through, I can see that for each of my students. If I see a student who only has a pair of flashes, then I know that that student does not have an entry code. And that might be that it's an outplaced student. It might be that it's someone that I'm keeping on the books because they still owe financial obligations. So I want to have that student available so I can go and put in that they paid their money. So it's just a straight, let me see what's here and or what calendar they're in. So those are the 3 entry withdrawal reports. Next up are our discipline reports. So if I go in under discipline, more discipline reports, I'm going to focus on the statistical summary and the historical summary. The statistical summary is that for the infractions, actions, or incidents that I want to work with, I want to get some counts. So I'm just going to select the ones that I'm seeing here, but I could select everything that I want, all of my codes. You can do any combination of totals, either by month, by year of grad, or by gender. And you can go ahead and print. I don't have a lot of data out here, so it's not going to take me long to bring it up. So here I can see that I have some tobacco violations. They left the building without permission in April, and we had some students that were fighting. So here's the totals by month. The D and the V over here on the left is letting me know whether it includes drug, alcohol, violence. There could be a B for bullying, or a F for fighting, I think is the other one. So there's different codes that I can use. There it is. Weapons was the other one. Sorry. Drug, alcohol, violence, weapons, or bullying. Now I could change this and just say, give it to me by year of grad. And now it's going to tell me what grade levels we're doing these. So for each of the codes, it's showing me the grade level. So in this case, they were all juniors. This one was a freshman. Fighting was a mix. So it gives me an idea of what was going on, and I can actually cut that down so I'm just seeing the ones that I had. And I could also do a gender combination and or a month combination. So I can do all 3, and you can also do a include infraction type summary, which is what these are. So if I do the whole spit, the whole all the combinations, I can see for each of these items, here's my overall totals for the month. Then I split it out by total males, females. I do each grade level and also split that out by gender. And at the bottom, I can see for if it involved drug, alcohol, what the counts were. If I go to the next page, I'd see the bullying, the weapons, or the violence. So it lets me see what sort of information is available that you can work with. And not only can I do this for the infractions, but I can do it for incidents. So I might have had one fight that involved 3 students. And I can also do the actions. Now, the thing to remember for the actions is the actions a lot of time can be in the future. So you might want to go to the end of your calendar to pick up those detentions and so on that are into the future. Or if you're at the end of the year, it's not going to matter. You can save settings so you can run them each time. And by the way, when I'm in the actions, there are some different action type summaries. This one, they give the in-school and out-of-school suspensions, removal usually to an alternate ed situation, or if they were expelled. And all of these, your output option still gives you the ability to go to PDF or into Excel. So you do have that capability. Another discipline report, which is really nice, is the historical summary. What the historical summary allows you to do is, even though I'm in one school year, it allows me to go back as many school years as I have in my database. And I can do a new page for each student. I can include my yearly totals, grand totals, do only the totals, whatever it is I want to work with. So I'm going to do a student range, and I'm just going to do the B's this time and go ahead and print. Again, you have your save settings or your output that applies to any of these. So here for Amy, we can see for this school year that these are the different things that she did, who it was reported by, the drug, alcohol, violence, weapons, or bullying flag, the actions associated with that infraction and what they were, how many units, the in or out of school suspension, removal, or expelled, whether it was opened or closed. So this bottom one, detention, was never marked as closed, so it still potentially needs to be served. But here we have our infraction totals and our action totals, so we can see for the student that she had a tobacco violation 3 times and just once on each of the others. But she had received detention 3 times, she had different demerits, and so on. And the left, here's your infraction and action totals, and then you also have how many units and how many actions are still open. And then on each student, you would get, these are the yearly totals, and then we have grand totals for the student. So we see it. In this case, it's the same because she didn't have anything from prior years. But it lets me see that, and in here for a student, she had some information in 13-14, she had some information in 14-15, and then it comes through, she didn't have anything in 15-16, but here's her overall totals for what were involved. So it's a really nice report to get what was going on with the student. And by being able to print it by a new page each time the student changes, you can put it in their files or, again, save it to a PDF to save the paper. So it does give you that capability to see what's going on. A discipline report you might want to run at the end of the school year or anytime during the year is under more discipline reports, is you can run a staff report by infraction. What this does is it allows you to see which staff are reporting what. So if I go and report all of my infractions, and I'm going to have a minimum occurrence of 1, what happens, and I left it as an or between. What this does is I'm going to say, well, just give me the totals only. I don't need to see the detail. I don't need to see the homeroom. Just give me the totals, and or I can print grand totals. So when I print, I'm going to skip staff that don't have any, and I don't need to include the year of grad because I'm not giving any detail. I'm going to first do it by staff and what infractions they're reporting. So it's going to go through and say, oh, here's each of my staff and how many times they reported what. But you can also flip this and say, oh, give it to me by the infraction and who the staff member is. The nice thing with that is if you had, say, insubordination in class or a couple of other things, you might have one staff member that has a higher number than anyone else. And that may be that they are the disciplinarian. So it might be legitimate, or it might be, okay, this staff member needs some instruction on how to better handle some of that in their class. So it's a nice way to just get some quick statistics for that. Okay. Next up are the grading reports. Actually, let me go back over to the staff portal and go into grades because there's a couple of those I can run from here. One is the graduation requirements report. And this is where you can track how the student is doing if you set up your graduation requirements to show, are they on track to graduate? I can base the report on just credits earned or earned and enrolled. So if I'm not quite at the end of the school year, I can show what they're enrolled in this year. For credits enrolled, I can look at the current year or the current and preceding year. So if I was doing this in next scheduling year, I can see what they're enrolled in this year. I'm going to do all students, not just those deficient in credit. And you have the course I'm actually going to run both so that you can see it, and I want to do a new page. If a student failed the class, you have the option to either leave the credits in enrolled. I'm going to make it so that they are not enrolled because they failed the course, and I'm going to use my transfer courses. My school years is for each of the students. I can show that in the 15-16 school year, 12th grade is the class of 2016, so I'm going to show those and the 2017. But I can move over each of these, or I could opt to do it through the end of school, so I could do it grade 12 for everyone if I needed to. The grade fields I want to see is I can bring in up to 4, so I might want to do my mid-year, and because they're the ones partway through, and or my final. So it lets me see up to 4 grades. I'm not going to print everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and print, and any of these can have settings where you can save them. But here is the summary, the department summary, so I can see for Amy, who's a junior, that I have 3 years of English that she needs to run, 2 years of social studies, and so on. And this shows me the credits that are earned because they've passed the courses, the credits they're enrolled in that they haven't finished the courses for, what those total credits are, and what credits are still needed. So Amy here still needs a business class. So if she passes everything this year, she still needs to pick up a business class that she hasn't done yet. Below that is the detail. So I'm going to see for each of the courses, it'll be grouped by department. It'll show me the mid-year and or final averages. It'll show me what school year, credits earned versus credits enrolled, and what those department totals are. So it's a great way to see how they're doing. You could have a department where there is no limit as to, there's no indication that they have to have a credit in that department. So it could be, say, for foreign language or something here, there is no credits that they have to have, but it will still show what they've earned. So it's a nice way to see how the student is doing. And here for her sister who's a senior, we hope at this point she doesn't have any credits needed. But it's a nice way to see this information. And this can also be set up so that the students can see it when they're registering for their classes for the next school year, which is kind of handy to be able to see how they're doing. Okay. Another report under grades is the failure missing grades report. This can be handy at the end of the year if I'm looking for those that failed or maybe those that are missing a grade and or a specific grade, because I might want to say, oh, show me anyone who still has incomplete. I'm going to do it by student, or I might do it by teacher to get the teacher to fill it in. And I can do a new page for each teacher. And I'm going to do it, say, for quarter 2. I'm going to let it build all my classes. I'm actually going to do only those that apply to quarter 2. So that's my quarter 2, semester 1, and year classes. So I'm going to build the list. Scroll to the bottom and print. So any student that still has an incomplete in quarter 2, it's going to show me. So I have a student that still has an incomplete, that needs one way or another to be satisfied. So it's a nice way to be able to pull that in, or to look for those that are missing, say, a final average. Okay. If you wanted to, you could run the honor roll list for the end of the year. You would run it for each marking period. So it would give you that capability. You select the marking period you want to print it for, and then tell it to print. And this is assuming that they have already been set up. So these are the students that made high honors, the ones that made honors, and or that are ineligible for sports because they didn't maintain a certain GPA. However you have those set up. The standards report card, if you're running them, this is another way to put in some information. I'm going to go ahead and recall my existing setting. And I'm going to do a student range, so I'm not printing everybody. So the standards you can set up as you have it. I'm just going to go ahead and print. There is different information that you can print depending on how you want to set it up. But this can be, say, like a final report card. What's nice with the standards report card, if they're activated, is I can also include any subject notes that the teacher might have put in. So it lets me see the overall course, the grades that they have, and then the standards that they have for that. There's a place to put in a note at the beginning. There's a place to put in a note at the end. And here's the teacher note. You can include your canned comments. You can include a free-form note. You are limited to 2 canned comments from different marking periods, and you're only allowed, I believe, 1 note. But it lets you bring that information in to see what's going on, and you can have a note at the end of it. But you can still bring in cumulative credits, GPA rank, attendance totals, that sort of information. And then you might have a blank page so that if you're printing double-sided, that it will print each student on their own page. So it just gives you that option to be able to come in and see it. Right. Let's go back into generations. So here in generations, when I go in under grading, under my grade reports, I can also do things like print permanent transcripts. The permanent transcripts is a report of the student's entire history, depending on the years that you have included. You have 3 different formats: the laser, the pre-printed, which is a dot matrix form, and a continuous. I go ahead and just pick Amy and I print. I'm going to be able to see the information that I have for her. In here is, you can set up some student information. So I have the student name, the parent name and address, some other information that I'm bringing in. And I can fill in whatever I want for the school information, but here for each of the school years, it's going to give me the ability to put in a header record, list the courses and potentially any transfer courses that they have. In this case, I am including all of the quarter grades and the final, but I could opt that on prior years I only want to see the final, but on the current year I want to see the individual quarter so I can see how they're doing. The credits would be whatever is credits that they have earned at that point, not attempted. You can bring in up to 6 different grades. The academic standing test, activities, honors, and awards can be, and there is also, as I scroll down, a miscellaneous area. You can bring in different information. Here I have, or I could potentially bring in the credits, career GPA. Here's my attendance totals that I'm seeing for different years. This is one way to bring in some test records. These are indicated as if they were biographical fields versus the activities and such that the student has been into. And if I go to the next page, I opted for my assessment records to bring them in as a separate page. So I can see the different ACT that the student has taken, what date they took it, and what their scores were. And those can be set up with different information where I said I wanted to see it on a different page. The continuous form, the difference is when I'm in the laser form, is the laser form has these 4 different areas. The continuous form, this is just one big area, and I can split it up any way I want. Any of these save settings that we're doing can be rolled to the new school year, so you don't have to do them over again. And you can even exclude specific courses from your transcript. So if you had a study hall or something else like that, that you schedule the student in, but you see it on the report cards, or on the transcript rather, you can come in and say, I don't want to see it. So it gives you that option to be able to go in and do that. Some schools might do transcript labels instead of a full permanent transcript. The difference with the transcript label, it is school year specific rather than multi-year. So there is a 3.5 by 3.5 by 2 column form that we can print on. You can set up the course and grades that you want to see. You can set up header information, which is a single line, so that's usually something like the student name and maybe what an optional, so I might put in here that it's the 15-16 school year, so I can see what they need. I can bring in the grade data, so I want to show the course. I might then want to show the grades, or maybe I just want to see the semester averages. And the credits that it's worth. And this is showing me how many characters I have. You again have the option for the recorded or alternate grade. Summary would be things like your attendance totals. So if I've done my attendance totals for the year, I can put those in. I can put in current year credits if I have calculated them, in the same with GPA. I might want to be able to come in and do a career GPA and maybe a rank. Depending, and I don't have to rank on the same GPA that I do the, what I'm showing is my career. So it lets me pick and choose what I want to see. So if I do just a few students here, it's going to run through, show me that information. And you can print courses with no grades or credits and so on. So it's designed for 2 columns. So it can be put on a permanent record card. And you get to see where at this point I just have my mid-year, I don't have my finals yet. But it gives me the ability to be able to put those in. And if the student doesn't have any courses, then it's not going to show it. But it's still designed that this student had less courses than this, but it's still set up for the next ones to fit where they need to be. It's just a different way to see it. Grade distribution reports give you the ability for either by course, department, or teacher to be able to see how well the grades are going out. So if I do it by teacher, I can come in and say for my quarter 1 classes, I want to show the grade class, which is my A's, B's, C's, and so on, rather than 100 down to 90. I can include blank grades. I'm going to cut this down to save me some time. And I can also do a teacher ranger where I can see what's going on. But if I print, it's going to let me see for each teacher overall how many grades they have in each area and what the percentage is. So for the students that I did, it's giving me some numbers so I can see what's going on. So this teacher only scored everybody of the 18 students I selected. They're all in B. So it's letting me see, what's going on. If I did this for the individual grade group, I would see the overall numbers. So here I can see the individual grades. Now I'm doing this right now on a teacher basis. I can also do this on a department basis. And it's all the same type of information. I'm just looking at it in a department rather than on a teacher basis. And even on the teacher, I can go to the point where I have the, I can do all my departments. So if I just want to see, say, how is my English versus social studies doing, deselect and just pick those 2. I can go ahead and go through and say, show me how those are doing. I can compare, here's how the English department is coming up with numbers versus the social studies department. And on the course one, the grades reports, grade distribution by course, I can split it down to course and or course section. So within the English department, I can look at each course and or I can do it by each course section. So I can further split it out. And you can order by teacher or by course. So it just lets me see overall what are those that are going on with it. You can come in here and run the failure missing report that I showed when we were in the staff portal, along with the honor roll list. You can also print your final report cards to be able to go through and see that at the end of the year. And those are just the same as you would with your regular report cards. It's just that you're doing it end of year. So it would initialize the information. Next up are a couple of the fee tracking reports. If you have fee tracking, you might want to run your student record listing, which gives you a detail of all of the debits and credits. We can opt to print closed, any notes. We might not want to see that. I can print families together. And I can go ahead and print, and this is just a straight, give me all the detail that they have. So everything that's in here, charges, payments, field trips, whatever it is that they have. Other reports that you can run with this is under fees, is you can run the statements, which can go multiple year. So if I run for just the Abiaticis, I can recall any statements I have. I can do it for a month. I can opt to go back for the entire school year. I can have different messages depending what I have. I can include my closed. Closed transactions is where I have a debit and a credit that match. So I had a charge against the student. I had a payment cleared. We're cool. But I can opt to do multiple school years. You can set up a header. You can see all of the codes or do specifics. You can opt for balances. You can set up balances. So I'm only doing students with a debit balance, but I can do those with no limits. So if a student, so nobody here had any with a zero balance or with a penny balance, I go back and print with no limit, I'm going to be able to see the information that's here. So they didn't have anything in this area. But if they did, I'd be able to see it. The statements are set up so that you bookmarks is where you can fold them so they go into a double window envelope. But there are also in here aging reports and or account summaries reports. The aging is pretty straightforward. It's how many months back, up to 90 days or over, do I want to see? And I can do the same for the account summaries. The account summaries and totals report is going to show me overall what are my balances for the date range. And it usually will default to a current month. But most of these you can group family members together so that everybody in the same family is grouped. You can see that. You can again do the closed transactions. Gives you options to work with that. The last set of reports I want to touch on are the NCLB reports. These are the No Child Left Behind, and they can be really handy. The ADM ADA report, average daily attendance, average daily membership, gives me where I can set a date range for any of these. I'm going to go ahead and hit my recall. I can set up what are my ethnic codes based on what the state has, and I can do up to 7. So I might need to budget a little bit to be able to get in because you have American Indian Alaskan. The Asian Pacific Islander is now Asian on one, Hawaiian Pacific Islander on another. So it lets me see some information. You can have subgroups for the No Child Left Behind, which is your economic disadvantage for free or reduced lunch, whether they're an English language learner or a limited English proficiency, if they're migrant or a special ed student. And you pick which field and what codes indicate that area. You can also bring in for grade levels and or homeroom. So if I print for the 18 students that I have, and again, I want to do this with an all-student filter, it splits it by gender with average daily attendance, average daily membership, and what is the percent attendance for that group. It'll show me the race, ethnicity, and it might have an other if I had somebody who wasn't in one of the groups I specified. I start getting below that, things like the economic disadvantage or the special ed. I'm not going to have the same total because not everyone was one of those subgroups. There's my grade levels and then my homerooms. So I have some others that were unspecified in that group, and they have an area of their own. But it gives me a nice quick area that I can get those numbers for. And I don't have to put all of the levels in. I could opt that I just want to do grade level, so it would give me gender and grade level only. The school enrollment under the NCLB, again, I can do it by those groupings. So there, I could do it here, what was set up potentially for October 1, but I'm doing it on this date. You have the standard groups here that you have set up. So when it runs, it's going to say, for that date you specified, how many students do I have in each grade level, each year of grad, and by the totals, by gender, how many are done by the race or the subgroups. So it very quickly gives me a count for that, so I can see it. The dropout report under school NCLB allows me to go through and see that information, and the dropout is based on withdrawal codes that said, you know, who they are that they're coming out. So you have that option, and you can again do the subgroups, the ethnic. So if you run through that as of that date, how many students did you have that dropped out based on those withdrawal codes? So it lets you see those numbers. So most of the NCLB are going to use those ethnic and other. You can run a calendar analysis report. What this does is, for the date range you specify, you can do your subtotals. I'm going to do my senior males. So I'm only doing seniors, males that are in there. I can see my subtotals. I didn't bother with those, but I could. I'm going to do a date range, and it's going to go through, and for every date, so it's going to run through for just the students who meet that. For every date, it's going to show me how many were enrolled, how many were possible, whether they were absent, and what the percent absent was that day. So it lets me see on a day-to-day basis how that group is doing. And I could have included everybody, and I'd see the results for that. There is a highly qualified teacher report, and that will go through your teachers and show you, you can do only those that are highly qualified or only those who are not. And do I want to see any certificate or degree information? So if I go ahead and print, for each of my teachers, it's going to show me the certificate and certification and date. Are they highly qualified, their gender, and hire date? And I can also see for some of these that they aren't filled in yet. So it's a nice quick report to show. The last of the NCLB reports is the assessment score summary report. So if you are putting in assessment scores into the testing area, you can come in for these groups and be able to show. So in this case, it's going to do just the math test to show what scores are here. They can show whether it's what area, and if they are not within a certain percentage, then I want to be able to show that. And let's print everybody. Okay. So it's letting me know that I didn't specify some of those. I want to print it anyway. I have some numbers for the different subgroups. And we can see which ones are okay and which ones are going to be targeted based on the numbers that we specified. Okay. As we said, 10 or above was okay. Anything below that, we targeted. So it lets me see some information that goes with that. Now, depending on the state, there might be some attendance reports or other reports you need to run. So under the daily more reports, if it is turned on, you would have some state attendance reporting, or up above you would have other state reports that you might need to be running. And I thank you for your participation. Do remember on any of these that you can always go into the question mark for help on the different reports. You can also go to our website and look for the knowledge base articles and tech bites. Those are both outside of our login. You would be able to go into the knowledge base articles or the video learning center. The tech bites are all available without logging in. In order to get to the full-length webinars, you would have to log in. We can supply that number for you, but it gives you an area where you can go in and see what's going on. And a lot of them will walk you through how to do that. So thank you for your participation, and we hope to have you at another webinar.